Hello, my name is Noe Martin. I am a creature artist, and I worked with Mark Meyer, who is an anthropologist at Chaffey College, and together we worked on reconstructing extinct hominids through the works of Paleo Art. So for those of you who may be unaware of what Paleo Art is, it is a form of scientific illustration that is in the field of paleontology and attempts to reconstruct extinct life forms that once lived on Earth through the works of art. So, as I mentioned, for our goal specifically, we reconstructed extinct hominids in attempts to familiarize myself with the process of paleo art by working with a scientist that was able to give me his expertise in the field of anthropology so that I can make these illustrations as accurate as possible. So, as you might be able to tell, this is a little bit different than from what other students may be doing. Instead of presenting you guys with data or explaining a hypothesis that I went out and tested and got results with, what I do, essentially, or what I did, was take that information that has been discovered by scientists over the decades, and then the information that Mark relayed to me, and then I apply that information to a visual aid in the form of paleo art. So how did we do it? Essentially, what we did was Mark had me just pick any hominid that I wanted, really. So I had complete freedom over that. So I would tell him which hominid I would want to draw, and then we would then discuss like ideas of like what we can have the hominid doing. He would give me information, again, giving his expertise on that specific species, just basically just feeding me knowledge so that I have a better understanding of what I'm drawing. So we ended up making five hominid reconstructions. They should be appearing on this side of the screen. That's the reason why I'm standing up and I'm off to the side so that I can put them over here after the video is done. But we made 5 of them. And so the first one was Ardipithecus ramidus. The second one was Homo habilis. The third one was an unidentified species of Australopithecine, I believe. The fourth one was Homo florenziensis. And then the fifth one was Homo neanderthalensis. And so they should be appearing in that order over here just throughout the video. I'm not going to explain all of them in depth individually because it's just going to take a while, and each one of them had their own stories behind them, but they all generally followed the same pattern. As you know, we would come up with the idea, I would draw it, I would then show the sketch to Mark. Mark would give me his feedback. I would then apply that feedback to the illustration, and then we get the final result. And then, of course, some of them took longer than others. Some of them we had to meet multiple times. He gave me more feedback depending on how complex it was or just how many inaccuracies he noticed. But at the end of the day, we worked on them as hard as we could, and I always got Mark's approval before we finalized it. So hopefully they show in the previews that I have over here. But as far as what I learned, I'll tell you right now, as I mentioned, I'm a creature artist. I mainly focus with fictional creatures, and as far as like paleo art goes, I've always had an interest in like Mesozoic and even like Paleozoic creatures. So hominids have never really been on my mind, and so this project really challenged me in making these illustrations. And so I learned a lot, especially from Mark helping me out. And so anytime there was an inaccuracy, or just anytime I brought up an idea to Mark, he would give me his insight. So like, for example, I'm not sure if it's up right now or not, but for the Homo habilis one, I'm not sure if I'll explain it as well as he did. I'm not the expert, he is. But from what I remember, Mark told me that Homo habilis began to become more cognitive of their environment. They became a lot more curious and a lot more began to learn a lot more about their environment. And so in the illustration that I have of Homo habilis, I drew an adolescent that was looking at a turtle and was surprised by when this inanimate object started sprouting legs and a head. And so the adolescent is like looking at the tortoise and being very curious and being very intuitive about it. But his curiosity is getting the better of him, and behind him is an elephant coming towards his way. And his family notices, but he doesn't because he's too distracted on finding out what the tortoise is. So that's one example. Another example is when I drew the Neanderthal. Mark was actually fine with how the Neanderthal looked, but one of the things he had an issue with was actually an object. It was the spear. The spear wasn't long enough. And so he told me that the spears were like really super long, way longer than what I illustrated. And then he also specified the tools that they used, being very specific, and like showing me examples and just informing me so that I can make these images more accurate to what they need to be. Another example is, again, not even something that has to do with the hominid itself, but in the first one that I illustrated of Ardipithecus ramidus sitting in the tree, he noted that my tree looks a little bit more like a tree or an oak tree from North America, but it's located in Ethiopia. So he was like, I'm not sure about that. So a lot of things like that normally I wouldn't even look at, things I wouldn't even pay attention to because I'd be just too naive to do the extensive research and look into these things. But Mark really taught me to pay attention to these finer details, because it's those finer details that initially I may not have paid too much attention to that make these illustrations a lot more accurate and a lot more realistic to what scientists believe they look like. And of course, it'd be a shame if I drew these things or not being accurate as the hard work that they put into their research for this. So yeah, Mark definitely taught me to pay a bit more attention to these things. And even now, I'm going back to some illustrations that I made before. Like right now, I'm drawing a Carnotaurus, and I'm paying more attention. I'm being a lot more patient with noticing the intricacies of that animal and how other artists believed it looked like, and just reading up on it more, and again paying a lot more attention to the finer details. Yeah, that's pretty much how it was for all 5 of the drawings. I'm just reading a list here of the things that I have written down. Yeah, no, actually, I pretty much got all of it. Yeah. That's how it went down. I learned a lot more about hominids than I did initially before I came into this project. And so, again, I have to thank Mark so much for helping me out, because if I was doing this on my own, I would have zero clue of what to do. The illustrations would be horribly inaccurate, and but no, thankfully, thanks to Mark, I was able to draw these a lot more accurately. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys found this a little bit interesting. I know there's not too much to it, or at least it's not as I guess complex as other students' projects may be, but I mean, yeah, it was just simply illustrating or receiving information and learning from that information, and then just applying it to the illustration. Other closing thoughts that I have is I would like to thank you guys for allowing me to participate in this opportunity, and I genuinely hope that other students can also join STEM, or if STEM can reach out to other students, or even if I can inspire another student to participate in STEM's program to possibly find a career path that they didn't even know that they wanted. So thank you, I appreciate it.